All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for joining. My name is Nick Medell. I am the Education Coordinator with Rural Arizona Engagement. We're a nonprofit organization that is based out of Coolidge, Arizona. Our mission is to educate, advocate, and coordinate in rural communities so they may gain access to civic education, engagement opportunities, and voter registration. With the start of the 2021 Arizona State Legislative session, it is more important than ever for everyday Arizonans to understand the inner workings of their state legislature. Thank you for joining us to raise your knowledge as we conclude our community education series, the Arizona State Legislature 101. In today's final session, Raise Power, we will teach you how to best get involved with organizations and candidates that share your values. And we will also go over the basics of getting published in a local newspaper by learning how to write a letter to the editor. So just a little recap from our previous sessions. If you want to see the previous sessions, I know one of them is on YouTube right now, and the others are going to be posted on YouTube pretty soon. So be on the lookout for that. Just a quick recap of what we went over before. We learned about the functions of the House of Representatives and the Senate in our Arizona state government. We learned how a bill is passed in the Arizona state government. We learned about ways on how to get in touch with your representatives. We learned how to find information on which bills are being considered in the state legislature. We learned how to find which representatives or senators support specific bills, and we learned about the request to speak system. So it was a lot of really great information. So if you want to look at those again, we'll be sending out emails with information on how to view our previous sessions that talked about all of this information. But some objectives for today's session, today's final session, it's really basic. We're going to talk about how to write a letter to the editor and why that's important. And we're also going to teach you the best ways to get involved with an organization or a candidate that shares your values. So we're going to start off with writing a letter to the editor. So, what is a letter to the editor? A letter to the editor is a letter sent to a publication about issues of concern for its readers. Usually, letters are intended for publication to be seen by the readers of the publication. So, basically, it's a letter that you're writing to your local newspaper, either responding to an article that was in the newspaper or an issue that's really important to you, and you're explaining your views and why you think the issue is important and what should change, and what people can do to change the issue. So the importance of writing a letter to the editor. It helps reach large amounts of people. So you do have a good chance of actually getting published in your local newspaper. And it will be, if you do get published, it will most likely be in your local newspaper's editorial board. And those are actually known for having large amounts of people read them. So you do have the opportunity to be published and reach a large amount of people. Um, Letter to the editors are sometimes monitored by elected officials and people in power. So if you're trying to influence an elected official, or you're trying to influence like maybe an owner of a corporation or something like that, if they read letters to the editor, there's a good chance that you can influence them. And it's also a great way to bring up important information that was not mentioned in news articles. So, like I mentioned before, your letter to the editor could be referring to something that was written in an article, and you want to talk about it or bring up information that maybe wasn't mentioned in that specific article. And we'll talk about that more later. It could also generate widespread support or opposition on a specific issue. So we did talk earlier, or the first point is that you do reach a large amount of people. So this could be a great opportunity for you if you are very in support or very opposed to a specific issue. It could help you generate that support or opposition from a lot of people. So some tips for writing a letter to the editor. One, keep it short and sweet. Some newspapers have strict limits to the length of a letter and limited space to publish them. So I think our local newspaper here in Pinal County, I think they limit your letter to the editor to about 250 words. So I would for sure keep it as short as you can, while also going over your points and getting your point across. Another point is to limit your letter to one topic. It is important to get your point across in your letter. Sticking to one topic or subject can help with this, and it can also help with the word constraints. So you don't want to talk about more than one topic because you are limited to so few words. So keep your letter to one topic. Make references to other articles written in the publication. While some papers print general commentary, many many will only print letters that refer to a specific article. So, like I said earlier, you can always reference an article that was written in the publication. Some newspapers may require you to do this. I know our local newspaper in Pinal County does not require you to do this. You can get printed with just general commentary, but most other newspapers will require you to refer to a specific article, and we will again talk about that later on. Some more tips for writing a letter to the editor. Follow the directions given by the newspaper. So we talked about this earlier. You might have some word constraints, or you might only be able to discuss a previous article and some other things. They will be strictly written out on the website if you want to find the directions given by the newspaper. Another tip is to share your expertise. So, for example, if you're a doctor or if you're um, an elected official and you're writing, let's say you're a doctor and you're writing about healthcare or something, it would be great to mention that you're a doctor because it gives you credibility. So, if you have expertise on a certain issue that you're talking about, it's always great to share that information. Refer to people you would want to influence by name. Maybe you're trying to get like your point across to your congressman, so you want to make sure that you include your congressman's name or your congressperson's name. So it like it says there, this can be an elected official or someone in power. Be timely if you're responding to an article. Write a response as soon as possible. So it's recommended maybe 2 or 3 days after is like the deadline to respond to an article in your local publication. So try to respond to it as soon as you can, so that the information is relevant and people are still talking about it. And then the last one is to do your research. You want to make sure that you are factual. You want to make sure that you're not spreading misinformation, because it's likely that the editor or people at the newspaper will fact check you and you won't be published. So you want to make sure that you are always giving factual information. All right, so this is a website that I'm going to go to show you a really good template for writing a letter to the editor. This is the National Association for Education of Young Children's website. They have a really, really good template for writing a letter to the editor. Um, so this template would normally be used for people who maybe are sending an email or writing an actual letter by hand. But most newspapers today, they have online forms where you can fill this out. So this information here normally would not be required from you because you're going to fill it out in a form online. but you would usually start with Dear Editor, and this is what you should include in your first paragraph. So the opening lines should reference the article that you're referencing or the issue that you're referencing. And an example of this could be with respect to the article titled like this. So you would just put the title of the article in quotations and you would write with respect to the article. And then you would state your position. The rest of the paragraph should summarize your issue of concern in a way that captures the attention to the reader. This is your opportunity to tie your issue to a recently discussed topic, take a stance on a debated topic, or correct an error or misrepresentation you felt was portrayed in an article. And then your next paragraph should explain your ties to the issue. In other words, why you're speaking about the subject. The subsequent paragraphs should further explain your issue and why people should care about it. If you have data or statistics to bolster your argument, this is a good place to use them. So in your second paragraph, that's a good place to um, to tell your expertise. So like I said earlier, like if you're a doctor talking about healthcare, this would be a good time to tell the readers about your expertise and why people should care about it. The next paragraph, follow your explanation with a call to action. What is at stake if no action is taken? What will happen if people respond with action? Make the consequences of each very clear and try when possible to inform the reader about the direct impact of not taking or taking action, of taking or not taking action. So a call to action could be like calling your representatives, or maybe it's filling out a form online, or maybe it's actually doing something that can change the issue immediately. Like if someone's writing let's say they're writing a letter to the editor about maybe trash on the side of the highway. Maybe your call to action could be volunteering for an organization that picks up trash on the side of the highway. And then in the last little sentence, in your concluding paragraph, recap your point, reiterate your call to action, and include specific information on how readers can get involved. And then you'll write sincerely and then your information. So this is a really, really good resource to use if you're trying to look for a template on how to write a letter to the editor. And I will share this along with the slides in a follow-up email after this event is over. So you should get it around 7:30 p.m. But if you are looking to write a letter to the editor, I would definitely follow this because it really helps you, get your point across, explain to people why you're supporting or in opposition of a specific subject, and what action people can take for that particular issue or subject. All right, now we're going back into the presentation. So I'm just going to recap what we saw in that template. So steps to writing a good letter to the editor. You always reference your article or your issue. Summarize your issue of concern and explain your stance. 3, explain your ties to the issue. 4, explain why people should care. And 5, you're going to end with your call to action. So now I'm going to show you a quick example of where you can, or what a website would look like, or what your local website might look like, where you can actually submit your letter to the editor. So to get this page, all I did was I went on Google and I searched letter to the editor Pinal Central. So Pinal Central is the local publication in Pinal County where people can write a letter to the editor. So if you look at this page, this is all of the recent letter to the editors that people have written, and you can actually go read them if you want to. But if you look right here, it will actually show you where you can go submit your own letter to the editor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And so I've done some looking around, and it seems like most publications have pages that look like this. So it's just a basic form that you fill out with your first name, your last name, address, phone number, email. And then it has a little box where you can actually write your letter to the editor. And like I said earlier, Pinal Central does have a word limit. It is different for each publication, so I would look at that before you write your letter, write your or type your letter. So make sure you check, if there's any rules before you write your letter for your local publication. All right, so some frequently asked questions for writing a letter to the editor. Do I have to be a journalist to write a letter to the editor? You do not have to be a journalist to write a letter to the editor. Um, you can just be a citizen, a constituent. If you're writing to a particular, if you're writing about a particular congressperson or whatever, anyone can write a letter to the editor. Should I encourage my friends to write a letter to the editor about the same topic as mine? Yes. So I saw online that if multiple people are writing about the same issue, there's a better chance that um, that one of them will actually get published in the newspaper on the editorial board when the newspaper is published. So yes, I would encourage you to encourage your friends to write an LTE as well. Is it okay to add humor to my letter? Yes, it's okay to add humor. It's a good way to maybe stick out from different letters that are written by people. It could catch the eye of the editors of the newspaper, possibly, and you could have a better chance of getting published. It could stick out from others that are more serious or more direct or that don't have humor. So it is a good idea to add humor to your letter. Should I use jargon or acronyms like LOL? You should not use jargon like that. This is something that could possibly get published in your local newspaper and it will have your name attached to it. So I would recommend using, proper grammar. Don't use any jargon like that because it will possibly get published. And so right now I'm going to go ahead and open the floor or maybe let you guys ask questions in the chat if you would like. So are there any questions? You can go ahead and mute yourself if you would like.
Yeah, I have a question. So for writing a letter to the editor, do you have to wait so for example, say I want to write about my legislator or my representative about voting rights and something along those lines. Do I have to wait for my local newspaper to publish something about that representative or voting rights and then respond to that, or could I just do it?
Yeah, so um, some publications do require you to respond to a particular article, a specific article on that topic if you want to talk about it. Like ours, Pinal Central, it doesn't require you to do that. You can talk about anything that you want to. But I did some digging around, and some newspapers have like a line or a section on their form that will ask you, like um, which article are you responding to? So it depends on the publication. Any other questions? No other questions? All right, we are going to move on. All right, so now we're going to talk about volunteering for a campaign or for an organization. So if you want to do more beyond writing your letter to the editor, and you actually want to get your hands a little dirty, maybe go out into the field and knock on doors and talk to voters or make phone calls or work for an organization that is doing work on the specific issue that you are interested in, volunteering for a campaign or an organization is something that is very important. And we are actually joined by someone who ran for office. Her name is Helen Hunter, and she would probably tell you that volunteers are a big part of a campaign's operation. So how to get involved. The best way to get involved, in my opinion, is to look online. Most candidates running for political office will have websites with information on how to get involved or how to join campaigns as a volunteer. And Helen Hunter did say for sure. Organizations in your area will also have places on their websites where you can sign up to be a volunteer. So what I would do is, when election season comes around, if there's a specific candidate that you really like, you can Google their name and find their campaign website. And most of the time, they will have an area or a tab on their website that has information on how to volunteer and how to get involved. And so that's where I would refer you to. And also, organizations have the same thing most of the time as well. Um, do your research. Make sure the candidate or organization shares your values. Typically, candidates or organizations will have website pages dedicated to their beliefs or issues that they're interested in. So you want to make sure that you are actually um, volunteering for a candidate or organization that shares your values. Because if you're not, then you won't have a good time there. If you're volunteering for something that isn't in your values, so you want to make sure to do your research. So again, online is a good place, is a good resource to go to search and look for those organizations that share your values. Ask questions. Never be afraid to reach out to the campaign or organization you're thinking about volunteering with. You can ask questions about their volunteer program, find out what they need help with, or ask any other questions you couldn't find on their website. So there's typically dedicated people within different organizations or on campaigns whose job it is to run the volunteer program or to answer any questions you may have. So never be afraid to ask those questions because sometimes you can be maybe a little intimidated to go out and volunteer. Maybe you're worried about whether or not you can volunteer in person or you can volunteer online right now due to COVID. So just always never be afraid to ask those questions. Some benefits of volunteering. So you learn new skills. um, I think one of the best skills you can learn is or best things you can learn is to boost up your confidence. So when I first volunteered for a campaign, it was like the first time I really spoke to a lot of people about specific issues, um, well, a lot of random people about specific issues, and it personally really helped me, boost my personal confidence and really helped me speak to people about important issues. Another benefit is that you can make new friends. So I have volunteered on different campaigns. I have volunteered for different organizations, and I have made a lot of friends in that process. Last year, I worked with our sister organization doing volunteer work, and I got to meet people from around the country. So right now, during COVID, it's hard to do in person things. So um, we did actually, we got to meet people from different parts of the country. So that was a really cool aspect of volunteering. Um, you also, another benefit is that you also get involved in your community. You become civically engaged and aware of important issues, and you have fun while doing something that makes a difference. Um, so, so now we're going to talk about some expectations of a volunteer. So a volunteer is someone who is passionate and committed to the mission of the campaign or organization. So if you're going to volunteer for an organization or a campaign, and you're not really passionate about it, it may not be something that's for you. So you want to make sure that you're really passionate about the mission, and it will make the experience so much more enjoyable. A volunteer is someone who has patience and can adapt easily to change. So campaigns and organizations are changing all of the time. So one day you'll be doing something, and the next you may come in and they'll have you do something else. Um, it's a part of the job. It's something that you can expect for sure. So always, be ready to adapt to change, and have patience with the people who are organizing, the volunteers, because they have a lot on their plate, and you just really have to be patient with them. Another expectation is someone who is reliable and will show up when they make a commitment. So like I just said, the people organizing volunteers, they have a lot on their plate. So it is really, really important as a volunteer to show up when you make that commitment, because there is someone, who has work for you to do, especially if you've committed to them. So it is so important to show up. And then another expectation is someone who is a team player, and will bring positive energy to the campaign or organization. So, especially during election season, this is something that is so important, because campaigns are really long. They can sometimes be really, really brutal. And so, someone who is willing to be a team player, someone who is willing to be positive, can really have a great impact on the other volunteers and even the staff members that are a part of the campaign. Some frequently asked questions about volunteering. How much time is required? So it's really up to you. If you want to do maybe like 2 hours a week or 10 hours a week, it's really, it's really up to you. The organization won't tell you that, like there's a minimum amount of time that you have to volunteer. It's up to the individual. Now, organizations will have like maybe different events you can sign up for, to volunteer at, or maybe different events such as like voter outreach events that you can sign up for, and they're maybe like 2 to 3 hours at a time or an hour at a time. So maybe signing up for one of those a week could be like your time requirement or whatever. But there's really no set time requirement for volunteers. Will there be a training? So yes, um, typically there is volunteer training, or there's a volunteer training for organizations and for campaigns. You won't be going in there blind. You'll know exactly what you will be doing. You'll know what your role is, and they'll teach you everything that you need to know. Do you have to be of voting age to volunteer? And the answer to that is no. There's a lot of young people out there that are not of voting age yet that want to get involved, and they should get involved because it is a part of your civic duty to get involved. So, no, you don't have to be of voting age to volunteer. Our organization does welcome anyone of any age to volunteer. And I'm pretty sure campaigns will also, allow anyone of voting age, anyone who isn't of voting age to volunteer with them. Can I volunteer from home? So, like we talked about earlier, the COVID-19 pandemic really did change everything for like the 2020 election. And I think beyond the 2020 election, it has changed things a lot too. So a lot of people were volunteering from home. Excuse me. They were making calls from home, sending text messages from home. You can also like write postcards to voters from home. There's a lot of things you can do from home, and you just have to get with the campaign you want to work with or volunteer with, or the organization you want to volunteer with, to see what different opportunities or options that they have. What if I don't like my volunteering role? So if you don't like your volunteering role, It is so important to let the person who is in charge of you know that that you don't like your volunteering role. You don't want to just give it up without letting that person know, because you have made that commitment. There's lots of different things that you can do within a campaign, like I talked about earlier. So if you don't like your role, you can maybe talk to someone and change it, or if the maybe if the mission of that campaign isn't for you, maybe you can just let them know that you won't be joining again. All right, so just some upcoming events that we're having here at RAZE. On the 23rd at 6 p.m., we're having our RAZE Community Redistricting 101 event. That is going to be a very important event. The census happened last year. This year is redistricting. Um, so we're going to talk about redistricting and gerrymandering and all that goes into redistricting. So make sure you join that. Again, that's February 23rd at 6 p.m. We will be emailing you information as that event comes closer. So be on the lookout in your emails for a sign up link for that event. So I wanted to thank you guys for joining tonight. Stay safe and remember to wear your mask. I hope you got some good information out of the event tonight about writing a letter to the editor, the importance of that, great information about volunteering for a campaign and volunteering for an organization. I will be sending a follow-up email with this presentation with the different links on where you can go to get that template and different stuff like that. And also, I'm going to send you the link to our local newspaper if you want to try out writing a letter to the editor. I think it would be great practice. So again, stay safe and remember to wear a mask. I hope everyone has a great night. I hope to see you in our next one.